In this movie, we're going to talk about tables. We're going to introduce tables. We're going to first go over the data structure that needs to be in place before you convert that data to a table. We'll then convert that data to a table. We'll go over some of the table attributes and then some of the table properties. We'll talk about the way the table dynamically expands vertically and horizontally when you add data around it. We can, if we need to, prevent the table from expanding by adding a column. We can quickly remove duplicates once we have a table set up. We have a couple of shortcut keys that we can use to select data in the table. And we'll find out how to convert the table back into a range if we want to. I have a spreadsheet set up with some information that I made up with some product and sales information by quarter. A data list has column headers, and each one of those columns uniquely identify a data point that is different than what's in the other columns. So column B has the product description, and columns C through F have a quarter's worth of sales, beginning with quarter 1, then 2, 3, and then 4. Each one of the rows of data, beginning on row 4, right below the column headers, represents a record. So product 1 has all the quarter sales, 1, 2, 3, and 4, listed on row 4. Product 2 has the same information on row 5, and so on. So this is a data list. And this data lends itself to being converted to a table quickly and easily by first left-clicking a cell in the data list and then pressing Control T. I get the Create Table dialog box. Excel has figured out where my data is. We can see the marquee around the content that I want to convert to a table. And the checkbox, my table has headers, is checked. And that is correct. So I'm going to left-click OK. We've converted this range to a table. I'm going to press Control Z to undo that and show you that we could have done this in another way by left-clicking the Format as Table drop-down, and we can convert this range to a table and format it with some kind of selection here at the same time. I'm going to randomly pick that style, and when I left-click OK, we get it formatted as a table using the style that we selected in the Table Styles gallery. So we've got a table. So what's special about a table? Well, first thing is that you automatically get filter drop-downs on the column headers, and we can see those displayed from cells B3 to F3. When you're in your table and you're scrolling down, and I'm going to left-click the down arrow just to control this scroll process. When I scroll down below the column headers in the table, the column headers on the worksheet become the column headers in the table. Left-clicking one more time, you can see that happen. That way, as long as you're working within the table, you'll always have your column headers displayed. When you left-click off of the table, you'll get the worksheet headers displayed. The other thing that happens, and I'm going to left-click in the table again, is that your table gets assigned a name. This table was named Table 8, and we can change that name by left-clicking and selecting Table 8, and then call this table, I'm just going to call it My Table, and enter. There is a limitation, however, when you're using tables in a workbook that you might want to be aware of, and that is that you can't use custom views when you have any tables at all in a workbook. So table properties. One of the properties of a table, and we just saw this, is that it has a name, and we just changed this table's name from Table 8 to My Table. And when you list the named ranges, going to the Formulas tab, left-clicking Name Manager, we see our table, My Table, listed there as a named range. That automatically happens when you create a table. I'm going to close that and go back to the contextually driven tab that's associated with this table and show you that you can resize the table by left-clicking Resize Table, and you can close this down if you want to and manually resize the table. I'm not going to resize it that way though. I'm going to click Cancel. I'm going to also show you that you can resize the table by clicking the resizing handle and drag it to the right or drag it even to the left, and I could get rid of quarter 4, quarter 3. I'm not going to do that. You can also grab that handle and elongate the table as well. I'm going to scroll up and show you that you can have the table dynamically expand in size When you add information into a column that's just to the right of the table, enter, and that column, column G, becomes part of what is the definition of the table. And you can also have it dynamically expand when you add a row to the bottom of the table. And I'm going to enter, and row 16 becomes part of what is defined to be that table. And it gets formatted automatically as well. You can prevent this automatic expansion from happening if you want to. When I input the word total and then press the enter key, there's actually two things that happen. It looks like there's only one, but there's actually two. When I enter, total gets entered into cell G3, and Control Z to back up one step. Then Excel formats column G as part of the table. So if you want to put some information adjacent to the table without it becoming part of the table, you can. You just have to reverse Control Z, undo one step. I've created a duplicate record by copying product 12 down one row. So I have product 12 listed in row 16 and 15 to show you that you can quickly get rid of a duplicate record by going to the Table Tools or the Design tab and left-click Remove Duplicates, where we get the Remove Duplicates dialog box, where we can further refine and define the definition of what a duplicate is. In this case, I'm going to leave all 5 fields as the reference to determine what a duplicate record is. And when I left-click OK, Excel tells me one duplicate record was found and removed, 12 unique values remain. I'm going to acknowledge that. And row 16 is now blank. It's been removed, and it's also not part of the table anymore. To select data in the table, you can select it like you do with any information on the worksheet, left-clicking and dragging. But you can also use some shortcut keys, and this is true actually even outside the table. By pressing Shift Spacebar, you can select the row in the table, and by pressing Shift Spacebar again, you can select the entire row. To select the column of data in the table, press the Control Spacebar, and to select the data and the column header, press Control Spacebar again, and then further to select the entire column, Control Spacebar one more time selects all of column C. When we set up this table, I sort of randomly chose a style that displays every other line with a green fill, and the column headers are in bold font as well. If you want to convert this table back to a range, you can do that fairly easily, but the suggestion is, before you do that, is to change the formatting style to none by left-clicking up in the upper left-hand corner of the gallery, and then left-click Convert to Range. When I do that, Excel will ask me, do you want to convert the table to a normal range? It's just making sure that's what I want to do. I'm going to acknowledge that and say yes. And now, when I click inside that data area, I don't get the contextually driven Design tab for Table Tools. I'm going to reformat this data list as a table, Control T, and I'm going to left-click and accept the default format style. To show you that if you don't convert the style back to none, that when you convert this area back to a range, it'll convert back to a range, but you'll still retain the formatting style, which might be what you want, but many times it isn't. So that's an introduction to tables. We first started with some data that was in a structure called a data list. That's a requirement to convert that data into a table. We converted our data to a table, and we talked about some of the attributes of that table. We changed the name of the table in the Table Properties dialog box. We resized the table, and we talked about the dynamic expansion of the table, where if you add information to the right of the table or below the table that's adjacent to the table will automatically expand to include that information. We can stop the automatic expansion of the table adding columns if we want to add some adjacent information right next to the table and have it not become part of the table. We found where we can quickly remove a duplicate record. We learned a couple of ways to quickly select the data in the row or the column, and we converted the table back to a range.